Hi, Stephen. Thanks very much for joining me again on the show. It's been a while.
Karl, it's been a while, and it's always a pleasure and a privilege to speak with one of the great sports psychologists in the world today.
And I didn't even pay you for that, did
There was no compensation included in that remark. It was
I?
just the truth.
I appreciate that very much. Stephen, I believe, we had some great conversations in the past, or we've had some great conversations
Yes,
in the past, and always well
yes,
received. And you wrote a wonderful book called Simplicity. But I
yes.
believe there's a new book in the pipeline.
Yes, I'm very excited about this book, Karl. And what it does, it goes one step beyond simplicity. It files down to a more fundamental level and understanding the dynamics of what happens when someone produces fluid motion and someone has career shots or career rounds or wins major championships.
Yeah, yeah. And in a nutshell, I think there's two things I want to discuss tonight with you, Stephen, that kind of tie in
Yes,
with my philosophy, really. One is building skills or building motion, and the other one is then probably more importantly is accessing that motion once you've
yes,
developed those skills.
yes, yes,
Let's start with the first one, because I know at this time of year, I think a lot of people may be considering making swing changes or maybe working with the coach on changing some patterns of movement. What's your latest understanding about the if you are going to embark on some swing changes, what's the
yes.
best way of doing that from a brain perspective?
You know, last week, it's interesting that you should ask that, Karl. Last week, I had a fascinating conversation with one of the top sports neuroscientists in the country, Dr. Fred Travis. And Fred and I have become very good friends over the last 15 years, and he's helped me understand completely, really, how fluid motion is produced. He worked with two Olympic teams, Norway and Denmark, winter teams. So he's top notch because those are two of the top Olympic teams in the world. And we filed down to answer that question, the question that you just asked. Okay, someone wants to make a swing change. What is the best way to do it? Now, what they're doing is when they want to make a swing change, is they're going to store new motion memory in the basal ganglia. The basal ganglia is the storehouse. We say muscle memory, but there's no memory in the muscles. It's located in the brain physiology. You have certain patterns that have been established. And one of the fascinating things that Fred told me 15 years ago that completely changed my understanding of sports is that once you've grooved a motion, any motion, that motion can't break down. What breaks down is the ability to access what you already own. Now, if you take that to its final destination, it will change how golf is played and how it's instructed, because it means you do not have to recreate the wheel on every shot.
Yeah.
All you have to do is to learn how to access what you already own. And I've had conversations with some very good players in the world, players that have won major championships or national championships. And I always ask them, if you could access what you own on a regular basis, consistently, would you be a happy golfer at the end of the day? And of course, everyone says yes,
Yeah.
because everyone has the ability to really hit the ball well if they're on that elite level. But to answer your question, well, what if someone wants to go in there and do a little surgery? Okay, that's your question, right?
Yeah.
So what happens if you want to do a little surgery? Well, here's the thing. If you do it wrong, your career could be over.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
Even if you've won major championships. Now, I'm thinking of a few players. I think you could probably think of the same few players in the past 5 years. I want to get 10 or 15 more yards. I want to do this. I want to do that. Okay. And essentially, Karl, they're done.
Yeah.
They are done.
It's a huge
It's
roll of the dice, Stephen, if you do it wrong, isn't it?
It is a huge roll of the dice, okay? Now, there's two things here. One is the best way to do it, and the second is why you're doing it in the first place. You've just won the Masters. You've just won the US Open. You have 5 majors under your belt, and you're not even 26 years old. Why would you want to go and do surgery when the patient is completely healthy?
Yeah.
Now, this is a very legitimate question, okay?
Yeah.
And if you have a solid, repeatable swing, I'm not talking about a beginner or intermediate player, because they're developing muscle memory. They need to put the money in the bank. They don't have it yet.
Yeah.
But there's a point in time in someone's golf career, and it's a lot earlier than later,
Yeah.
where it's time to close the book on the swing. I'm done. I'm done. What if Jordan Spieth closed the book on the swing? What if Ricky Fowler closed the book on the swing? What if Justin Thomas closed the book? What if Ian Baker Finch, David Duval, Lee Jansen, Trevor Immelman, what if they all just said, okay, I'm done? And all they worked on was their short game, which you can always work. All they worked on was situational things around the green. You know what? They would have doubled the amount of majors. They would have a better chance of double the amount of majors. So you asked me a loaded question, okay? So we have to go down and understand that this is you're on thin ice when you're doing this if you're a good player. Now, here's the thing, okay? It's inherent within human nature that we want to improve.
Yeah.
We want to have more success. We want to have more fulfillment. We want to have more happiness. We want to have more enjoyment out of life. We want to make more money. No one wants to stay the same. You want to stay the same, Karl? I don't want to stay the same. I want to feel I'm progressing in life.
Cool.
So that's inherent within the DNA of every human being. Okay, so you're a professional golfer. You've just won the Masters. And I don't want to be satisfied with this year. I want to keep getting better. I want to keep getting better. I don't want to win 1 Masters. I want to win 5 Masters. Okay, and I'll just preface this that Tiger is the exception to the rule. That's one in a lifetime. Okay, what he did going through those 3 swing changes. Most people, 99.9% can't do what he did. So don't even compare yourself to Tiger unless you've won 15 majors, and no one has won 15 majors. Okay. So I want to get better. I just won the Masters, and I work with I work with 2 players who won majors and then never won again because they went in there and did surgery. So they're thinking, I'm not going to name any names. I just won the Masters. I want to get better. Now, the million-dollar question is, how am I going to get better? Well, the wrong answer is I want to swing better, because after all, it's the golf club that hits the golf ball. And if I have a better swing with a golf club, I'm going to hit the golf ball better, right? This is a career-ending thought.
Decision.
It's a career ending, okay? And we're talking about the elite of the elite, because at that point in time, better is the enemy. I want to get better. I want to get better. Okay. How about this, Mr. Masters champion or Mr. US Open champion? How about if you have the thinking and then you have a program, and that's what I teach essentially, how to access what you already own, where you can access your best shots more consistently. Would that be acceptable to you? Now, do you think anyone's going to say no to that, Karl? No. Of course, that's all I want. I don't know how to do it, because I don't know that, that space just shows up. And when it shows up, I win a major championship, but I'm just hoping that space shows up. Oh, meanwhile, I want to work on my swing. It's not profound thinking. It's not profound thinking. Profound thinking is, I just won a major championship. Let me learn how to access that on a regular basis. Okay? All right. So that was a big preface to the question I'm gonna answer now. Because if you really go ahead.
I was just going to say that what the point that you're making, and I'm sure we will get back to the swing changes in a minute, but the point that you're making, Stephen, and I've seen this in the last 30 years, how many people make the mistake, not just major champions, guys who've got tour cards and things like that, maybe 1 or 2 rungs down, they make the mistake of thinking that they need to make a swing change. But the problem is not the swing as such, it's the ability to access the swing that they already have that's the problem.
Exactly. Okay. So what they're doing is, you don't go from in the U.S. high school, ninth grade to 12th grade. You have to go through 10th and 11th.
Mm.
And if they can't access, okay, you don't go from a 10th grade to college. No, if they can't access on a regular basis what they already own, why would they think they can access what they're going to change in their swing on a regular
Yeah.
basis? It doesn't, right? That's what you're saying, which
Yeah.
it's very insightful. You can't even go from A to B. Now you want to go to A to G. It
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, let's come back to that then, but then
yeah.
let's go back to the first question.
Okay, let's go back to the first question. So, what happens is you have certain wiring in your brain physiology that can access your muscle memory. It's in the basal ganglia. It's a storehouse of muscle memory. So you want to go in there and you want to put in new circuitry. You're going to sort of recircuit, the brain physiology, so it starts to get used to this new motion, whatever change you want to make in the swing. It doesn't matter. So what normally happens is a student goes to an instructor and they both agree on the change. Yes, they saw it on video. Yes, okay, that's too steep, or that's too shallow, or your hands aren't high enough, or you're not rotating your hip, whatever. It could be
Whatever.
anything, right? They agree on it, right? Then they go into what I call you did it, you didn't do it mode.
Mm.
You did it, you didn't do it mode. Okay. And of course, oh, that's good. Yeah, yeah. No, you didn't really get it on that. Now, when you are in this kind of instruction, this did it, didn't do it mode, there's two main things I'm going to say about changing the swing. This is the first one. You are culturing the mind to be concrete. You are giving yourself a report card on every swing.
Yeah.
Every swing, you're giving yourself a report card.
Mm.
And you give yourself a pat on the back when you did it. You don't give yourself a pat on the back when you didn't do it. So what are you culturing in your mind? You're using very concrete criteria. It's very black and white. You did it, you didn't do it, I almost did it, right? When you use concrete criteria in evaluating a swing or trying to make a swing change, you are culturing the mind to be concrete. Now, here's the thing, and it's a big thing. The mind was designed and created to produce fluid motion when it is abstract.
Right.
When it is abstract. And if you're using concrete criteria, which you do even if you're not trying to make a swing change, because everyone gives themselves a report card on every shot they hit on the range. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah.
Every shot.
Mm.
Okay. It's good. It's not good. It's sort of an ego boosting kind of thing. Then they go to the first tee.
Mm.
Well, they've hit 1,000 balls that week with concrete criteria, and the mind is weakened when it's concrete criteria. They're just hoping and praying the mind gets abstract. Even if they don't understand these dynamics, it doesn't matter. The laws of motion, the laws of nature operate independent of human belief. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to believe that water's going to boil at 100 degrees and freeze at 0 degrees. There's no belief involved in this.
Mm.
So what happens, there's two things that happen. One, when they correctly make the swing change with the instructor,
Mm-hmm.
they are not associating the processes in the mind that allowed them to make the swing change on that swing. Do you see that?
Yeah.
You understand
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
They are not associating the processes in the mind that allow them to make the change. And when they don't make the change, they're not associating with the processes that they didn't access that prevented them from making the change.
Mm-hmm.
So a logical question would be, well, what's this environment you're talking about? What are these brain processes? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll explain what it is. All right. So the question that should be asked, if you're following this logic, is what is the environment that the brain physiology has to exist in order to produce fluid motion, or in order to go in there and do some surgery?
Yeah.
And that can be defined and explained, and in one word: wholeness.
Right.
Wholeness. The brain physiology was designed to create fluid motion when it experiences wholeness. Okay, so wholeness is very abstract, Karl. Let's make it concrete. You're on the course, you're behind the ball, and you're taking into consideration all the elements of the shot, the lie, the wind, the temperature, what you want to hit, how you want to hit it, where you are in the round, where you are that year, okay, where you are in life. It could be, a whole slew of things. Now, everyone's made a smoothie before, right? What do you do when you make a smoothie? You put the raspberry, strawberry, banana, and yogurt, and you hit the blend button. Now, after you hit the blend button, if you could see the outline of the banana, you don't have a smoothie. Yeah, that chunk, well, that's not a smoothie, right? So we're gonna make a golf smoothie, Karl.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So we're gonna put. Oh, your wife just.
All right, don't worry.
That's okay. Hi. Okay. So we're going to make a golf blender. We're going to put all these ingredients into a golf blender. The lie, the temperature, the wind, everything. Now, right before you pull the trigger, we're going to hit the blend button. Immediately preceding initiating the motion. And if after you hit the blend button, of course, this is happening in microseconds, there is one ingredient in your blender that's overshadowing another ingredient. Don't hit it left. Don't hit it right. Get the club in this position, okay? Not too shallow, not too steep. Make sure you make a full turn. You do not have a threshold level of wholeness.
Right.
Remember, the brain physiology was created to produce fluid motion when it experiences wholeness. So if you don't have a threshold level of wholeness before you pull that trigger and you pull the trigger, what chances do you have of having a threshold level of wholeness during the swing? It's blackjack at that point, because what you've done, if you don't have a threshold level of wholeness, is you curtailed the flow of intelligence between the mind and the body, the intelligence that's actually overseeing every movement you make in the swing. Excuse me. It's like you have a water hose and you pinch the hose and the water doesn't come out. Well, the intelligence doesn't come out. And that's when you do crisis management. And you just hoping and praying that you can save this shot, because certainly you're in a crisis situation. Now, let's go back to working on the swing, right? Yeah. And you're not associating the processes in the mind that allowed you to access what you already own. So what you're doing is that swing thought is pulsating in your mind all the time. It's pulsating. More of a shoulder turn, too steep, took it too far inside. I'm working on that. I'm working on that. I'm working on that. So that's a very specific ingredient you have in your blender, right?
It's the banana.
Because this is the banana, okay? And what you're doing is you're making the banana the star of the show when you're practicing, when you're trying to make the swing change. And the only way you make the swing change is if the banana becomes part of the other ingredients. But you don't know the dynamics of what's going on. It just sort of happens by chance. And if you're a diligent worker, it'll start happening more and more. If you're talented, a golfer, it'll start happening more and more. But you're doing yourself a tremendous disservice. And this is why most golfers cannot take any changes they make on the range to the course, especially in competition. Because you don't understand that the brain physiology has to experience a threshold level of wholeness in order to produce fluid motion. You are pulsating with that banana all the time out there. That swing thought, which is part of your blender, is pulsating. It's pulsating. Now, you get a false sense of confidence on the range and on the course when you actually execute the swing change you want to make. You get oh yeah, okay, I did it, yeah. And maybe you do it 1 out of 2 or 3 or whatever, but you're not doing it 100%. There's very few pros who have made significant swing changes in their career and still excel. One I can think of, obviously, is Tiger. Mark, who was Tiger's buddy at Isleworth? Mark, I can't remember his last. Mark, you know who I'm talking about.
Oh,
okay? They were.
Yeah, God, he won the British Open, didn't he?
He won the British Open.
Mark O'Meara. Mark O'Meara.
Mark O'Meara. Okay, so Mark O'Meara also made, I would imagine, a pretty major swing change. Harrington went through some swing changes, okay, that were pretty major, and he's blossoming now on the Champions Tour, okay? But these other, that's it. Better is the enemy. Because even though they knew what they had to do, even though their instructor knew what they had to do, they couldn't do it consistently. And what happens when the banana starts to pulsate, or the swing thought starts to pulsate, okay, is you lose the most valuable thing in a swing, the glue of the swing. What's the glue of the swing? Timing. Timing. Because what you're doing is you're making one part the star of the show, not realizing that this is a symphony. This is not a solo trumpet recital. And you've got other parts of the swing that have to be integrated. But your fallacious thinking is that if I can just get this domino in a row, if I can just get my hands a little higher, or I'm a little too steep and get a little bit more shallow, then the other parts of the swing are going to fall like dominoes in a row, and I'm going to be fine. Let me know how you do in your career, because essentially your career would probably be over.
Yeah. So if somebody's making that swing change, Steve, they've identified with the coach that they're too flat, too upright, whatever.
Right.
And they want to change that position at the top of the swing. They're aware of that. How do they then?
Yes, beautiful.
How do they press the blend button?
Okay, so I'm giving away secret knowledge here on air here. Okay.
Nobody's listening. Nobody's listening.
Karl, you're my main man in Europe, so of course. So there's two things I'm going to say about that, and the first one is a little long, so remind me to say the second thing when I'm finished. Okay. So if a potter wants to mold clay, what's the first thing that they do? They moisten it. They make it malleable. So when they put it on the wheel, they can shape it any way you want. Now, if you want to change your swing, you don't start with the body. The body doesn't have any intelligence. Just because you tell yourself you're a little too steep, John, you're a little too shallow. So what are the mechanics of how you transform intention and execution? This is a very crucial question. How do you transfer and make whatever intention you have? How do you actually execute? Okay, so you have to start with the mind. How do you start with the mind? Well, the mind was designed to create fluid motion when it experiences wholeness. So the first thing you have to do is you have to give the golfer an experience of what wholeness feels like. Forget about giving them any kind of instruction, because you are putting what is it? Is it the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart? Okay. Yeah, I know it's one of those two, all right? Yeah. So you've got things backwards. Yeah. So there's a very specific way to give someone the experience of wholeness. And I'll just quickly tell you what it is, okay? You put someone over the ball on the range, and you say, okay, I want you to simulate a very important shot in a big tournament for you. You got people watching. I want you to go through your whole pre-shot routine, and then right before you're about to swing, just say now to me, and I'm standing right next to him. So he goes through his whole pre-shot routine, gets over the ball, and then he says now. And then I say, drop the club and stand up. But they're a little confused at that. No, just drop the club and stand up. Just stand up. And of course, they still have that tension in their body. So I say, I want you to feel like you're in your living room at home. You feel like you're at the living room, and it takes them a second or two to, readjust, because everyone equates focus and concentration with execution, which is not true. Yeah. You have to equate silence and wholeness and abstraction with execution. And then I asked him, I said, now, you see the way you feel right now. Is that the way you felt when you had the club in your hand and you were about to pull the trigger? Oh, not even close. Okay. So what we're going to do is you're going to go through this whole thing without a ball. You're not going to hit a ball yet. Okay. You're going to go through the whole thing. And right before you pull the trigger, you're going to drop the club and stand up. And you have to do that as many times as you need to do it until you feel, when you drop the club and stand up, you felt exactly the same when you had the club in your hand and you were about to pull the trigger. Right. It's 5 to 10 minimum. Okay. Some people take more because they're living in drama city. Yeah. They're thinking that they don't know the money's in the bank. All they have to do is access it. What they're doing, they're living in checklist city, and they're trying to reinvent the wheel in every shot, which is, you don't have to do that. okay? Do you do that on the driving range when you drop 5 balls and you hit it so pure? Are you trying to recreate? No, it's always there. So now, okay, now when they're able to feel the same way over the ball with the club in the hand that they felt when they dropped the club and stood up, now they've experienced wholeness. That's wholeness.
Right.
Because nothing is pulsating. The banana is not a chunk, okay?
Right.
If the banana is a chunk, they're going to feel different when they drop the club and stand up. You understand that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now they have the experience of wholeness, right? So now we're going to go in there and do surgery, but the motion is secondary. The instruction for the motion is secondary. What is primary is that they have a threshold level of wholeness during the swing. So the student and the instructor agree on what has to change, okay? So let's say, give me a typical thing that a player would change, okay, at an elite level or any level. Just give me an example.
As I said, maybe they're too upright and they want to shallow the position a little
Okay,
bit
so
at
they
the
want to
top.
shallow. Okay, so the instructor says, okay, show me a swing where you shallow the swing, right? And obviously, it's very easy to do if there's no ball. You do it immediately, right? Okay, so now you know what it feels like. Now, we'll call this this student John. Okay, now John, what I want you to do is, without hitting a ball, I want you to take a swing where your attention is on shallowing the club, but you have to give me a number from 1 to 10 on how much wholeness you experienced while you were specifically thinking about shallowing the club. Because what happens is the banana never gets into the smoothie because all the attention is on the banana. Okay, all the attention is on shallowing the club, shallowing the club. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to associate the process that actually is going to allow you to shallow the club, which is an experience of a threshold level of wholeness. So we're giving them the direction to do something, but then I say, now you have to give me a number from 1 to 10 on how much wholeness you experienced when your attention was on shallowing the club. Oh, now we're getting somewhere, okay? Now we're associating the process in the mind that's actually going to allow you to execute shallowing the club. So 1 to 10, okay? 10 is 10 level of wholeness. 1 is no wholeness. No one starts off with 10, okay? Nobody. I've never had it. They're 4, 5, 6, okay? Sometimes they have to take 5, 10 swings because they're so used to focusing in on something specific. They're so used to focusing in on that chunk of banana that the mind it goes the opposite. There's very little wholeness, right? So I do this until they have a 10 level of wholeness, and it absolutely takes a number of swings. Okay, now they're ready to hit a ball because they have a baseline of what the mind should be experiencing when you have your attention on shallowing the club, right? We're on the same page here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now you're going to hit a ball, John. But you're going to give me a number from 1 to 10 on how much wholeness you had while your attention was on shallowing the club. And I don't care whether you shallowed the club or you didn't shallow the club. My criteria, evaluative criteria, is going to be how much wholeness you had while your attention was on shallowing the club. So we're keeping the mind abstract because we're using abstract criteria. If the instructor says, okay, let's see how many times you could shallow the club out of these 5 or 10 balls, they're never associating the process in the mind that allowed them to actually shallow the club. So what you're doing is you're using abstract criteria. You're not using concrete criteria. Would be you did it or you didn't do it. Abstract criteria is how much wholeness did you have in your brain physiology while your attention was on shallowing the club. So now what you're doing is you're rewiring the circuitry in the brain from a very powerful level because you're associating the process that allowed you to do it. So what happens is that you can make the swing change so quick. I mean, I've seen it in 2 or 3, 4 swings. They got it. They got it. They got it. Okay. We're not talking about, every 3 swings they got it or 4 swings. We're talking about boom, 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 boom. So what happens, because that deposit is such a strong deposit, because you've associated wholeness with the change, when you go take it to the course where the rubber meets the road, and it was a deeper deposit, you have more access to it. So that's how I change a swing.
Right. And presumably then when we take that onto the golf course and we're aiming to access our skills on the golf course, then correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, what you're saying is that before the shot takes place, there can be swing thoughts. There is processing in terms of the shot that you're trying to play, all of those things. But then when you actually come to play the shot, that's crucial moment when you hit the golf ball, that's when the wholeness, the quiet, the silence, whatever you want to call it, is created.
Lee Jansen and Jack Nicklaus had 4 to 6 swing thoughts. Okay, every shot they've hit. I don't think Bubba or Freddie Couples has ever had a swing thought. All right. So what's good for the goose is not necessarily good for the gander. But, and it's a big but, what they had in common, and that what every ball striker, every great ball striker, whether it's Hogan or Snead or Byron Nelson, it doesn't matter, okay, Trevino, have in common is before they initiate the motion. And again, remember, laws of nature are, you don't have to believe in them, they operate, okay? Is that before they initiate the motion, they've made a perfect smoothie. They've all made a perfect smoothie, whether they know it or they didn't know it, whether they understand it or they didn't understand it, it doesn't matter. You cannot believe that water is going to boil at 100 degrees centigrade. Does it really matter whether you believe it? No. So this is the brilliance of Dr. Fred Travis's contribution to my life, my career, is understanding that there are specific laws of motion and laws of nature. And if you violate them, you will be humbled in one swing. Now, I told you there were 2 parts. So the second part, when you're changing emotion, is that if the instructor is always saying, you did it, you didn't do it, it's all external learning, okay? It's all external. And it's like reading a blueprint for a building. But how the body changes motion has to be more internal. Because if the body, if you're always in this you did it, you didn't do it mode, you're not internalizing and feeling what's going on. The body needs to feel that. And if you're in this report card, and if it does, if you go in, it's exponentially, okay, quicker. But if you don't do that, then the body doesn't really remember. It doesn't remember how it feels, okay? You're just getting external evaluation. Look at how an infant learns how to walk, okay? He gets up, he falls down. He gets up and he falls down. Now, obviously, he couldn't understand what you would be saying if you know you want to keep that foot straight and then you move this foot and bend it a little. But he's enlivening the inner intelligence of the physiology to learn. And if you don't enliven the inner intelligence of the physiology, okay, if you're just looking at those TrackMan numbers and saying, okay, that was shallow, that was not shallow, that was shallow, that was not shallow, and you're not internalizing the feeling, how it feels, this is a slow boat to China. And again, this is another reason why it's so challenging and difficult to take swing changes to the course. Even the pros can't do it. Jordan Spieth, Lee Jansen, okay? All the greats. Now, does that, do you understand that, right? Now, I want to talk about another thing, if I can, okay? Or unless you want to go to a different. All right. So you ever have a catch with someone, right? We play a lot of baseball here, or even well, you don't play football there, but okay, soccer, okay? You're having your you got one person, let's say 10 feet away from you, and you're going back and forth with the soccer ball, right? And then he moves 20 feet, and he moves back 20 feet. You sort of stop, moves back 20 feet. And as soon as he stops, immediately, you have input all the processes necessary to allow that foot to generate enough speed for the ball to go 20 feet rather than 10 feet. Okay, we on the same page? You understand that, right? Okay. So you're on the golf course, you're behind the ball. As soon as you're behind the ball and you look to see, thought I heard someone knocking, and you look to see where the pin is. Oh, it's 150 yards. Oh, it's 175 yards. Or the putt. Oh, it's 20 feet. Or it's 30 feet. You immediately input all the processes necessary to generate enough speed to get that ball there, right? Okay. You program the computer. The problem occurs is on the way in, you keep inputting processes. You're over the ball, you keep inputting processes until there's so many processes that you inputted in the transition, the key moment in the swing where you're changing directions, the cerebellum, which is smoothing out the swing and self-correcting, it doesn't know what set of processes to listen to, okay? You know, that's when you overread a putt and all this. Now, case in point, I love Rory. Who doesn't love Rory, okay? He's such a likable guy. He's got an unbelievable swing. In 10 years, in 40 majors, Rory McIlroy has not won a major. How is that possible? 40, 10 years, 4 a year, right? So he's tied with Bryson DeChambeau at Pinehurst this year at the US Open. He gets to the 16th hole. And if Rory ever gets a hold of this and listen to Rory, I tell you what, my number one dream is to work with you because I think I can change your career. And I think you've got 5 to 8 majors left, okay? But let's just review what happened on the 16th hole. It was a par 3. He gets over the ball. He looks to the target 7 times, looking, input another set of processes, looking, input another set of processes. So he's got so many sets of processes. Again, the cerebellum is confused. He gets to the 18th hole. He's tied. All he has to do is make a par. No one's going to make a birdie on that hole, more or less, okay? And Bryson had that unbelievable sand save, okay? He looks at the fairway 9 times, Karl. 9 times he looked up. Do you realize how many sets of processes he has inputted into his brain physiology? When you think he's on the range and just puring every drive, how many times is he looking up? Once, max. Max. So unless a golfer or an instructor understands the delicate processes, the motherboard of the swing is not the motherboard of the swing. The processes in the brain physiology are the motherboard. Unless they understand that, they're playing blackjack. I don't care who it is. I don't care what tournament it is. It's blackjack. And this is why players are in, they're out, they make the cut, they win the tournament, they lose their card, they gain their card. They don't know. That's my opinion. Actually, it's a fact. It's not my opinion.
So for anybody listening, Stephen, they're on the golf course, they've worked on the swing, they've got repeatable motion, they know they can play the game. Talk me through then your suggestions of what a you know, you've talked about these processes. What would a good process look like to create a shot?
Yes. So I'll give you the ideal routine. Okay. First of all, after you initiate the swing, you don't have control anymore. It's gone. Right? You got something moving 100 miles an hour. You think you're going to really control it? If you can control it, you would, but you can't. So, but what do you have complete control over? What you're doing in the pre-shot routine. The pre-shot routine is like a seed you are creating. And if you don't create a good seed and you drop that seed into the ground, it's not going to grow into a healthy apple tree. So if you don't create a good seed in that pre-shot routine, you're just hoping and praying something comes out in the shot that's good. And most people actually, they sabotage themselves even before they get to the ball. And the reason why they sabotage, we're talking about the pre-shot routine now, they're about to hit a shot. The reason why they sabotage themselves, Karl, is they equate attention with execution. They equate focus with execution. They equate concentration with execution. Now, I'll ask all your listeners, all your millions of listeners around the world, okay? If you had one word to describe your best round, would you say focused? Would you say determined? Would you say I was concentrated? No. What would you say? Simple, easy, effortless. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah.
90% or 100%?
Yeah, most people
100.
say easy, effortless, flow, calm. Yeah.
Do they say, oh, no, I was really focused? No, they don't. So because they equate attention with execution, they are sabotaging themselves. The most important element in a golf swing is not the golf swing, because once you pull the trigger, you're done. The most important element is the golf swing is the space that you're creating in the pre-shot routine, because they are going the opposite way. They're making sure that that chunk of banana never gets absorbed into the smoothie. It's never a smoothie. I have to put my attention on that banana, right? You understand the analogy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So what's the ideal routine? The ideal routine is you're behind the ball. You take into consideration all the elements of the shot, the lie, the wind, the temperature, club, how you want to hit it, shape it, trajectory. And you create what I call an algorithm. An algorithm is the wholeness of the shot in a formula. Now, once you create the algorithm, what most people do are focusing in on never forgetting the algorithm as they're walking in, especially when they're over the ball. Well, let me ask you a question. You create the algorithm. Are you going to forget the shot in 10 seconds or however long it takes you to initiate that motion? Ever? Are you going to ever forget where the flag is, where the fairway is? No. Okay. But reminding yourself over and over and over, repeating the algorithm, okay, I want to hit it right to the left. There's where I want to start. There's where I want to end. There's where I want to start. First of all, you're inputting all the processes that are going to be, there's a plethora of processes. The cerebellum is not going to know which to listen to, okay? And you'll never forget the algorithm. So once you create the algorithm, then you have to do one thing. You have to feel that if you drop the club right now, before you walked in, you would feel exactly the same, okay? If you dropped the club and you stood up, you would feel exactly the same as you felt immediately after you created the algorithm and you're about to walk in. Now, you can't do this immediately, because once you create the algorithm, the play is already started. This is, curtains up now, okay? Lights are on you. Here comes the orchestra or whatever. So you have to wait 2 or 3 seconds until the drama starts to dissipate, because there's drama after you create the algorithm, because this is where the rubber meets the road. So you have to wait 2 or 3 seconds. You can't create the algorithm in my ideal pre-shot routine and then immediately walk in,
Right.
because you have not created a threshold level of wholeness.
Too busy.
You have the opportunity now. You haven't done anything. You haven't moved. You haven't taken one step. You have the opportunity now. Well begun is half done. And if you don't get into that space of well begun is half done, somehow you're going to have to create wholeness. And usually you try to do it too quick over the ball and this and that and all the drama. Look at Rory, okay? 9 times. 9 times. So the first part of the pre-shot routine is you don't walk in till you feel that if you dropped the club and stood up, you'd feel exactly the same. That takes a few seconds. Then as you're walking in, you have to feel at any point as you're walking in, if you drop the club, you would feel exactly the same. So you're neutralizing the drama. You're dissipating the drama. Then over the ball, you have to feel, so what I call setting one with the shoulders, that right before you initiate the motion, if you dropped the club and stood up, your shoulders would feel exactly the same. And you cannot initiate the motion until you feel that. And if you don't feel that, which is normal for 5 or 6 shots in a round, you don't like the visual, the wind is a little swirling, it's a key shot, you're not happy with this club, but you have to hit it, you have to back off. Because if you don't back off, you have given away your most valuable asset in playing golf, and that is establishing a very high threshold level of wholeness before you initiate the motion.
I think you mentioned it in the book. I'm sure you mentioned it in the book. That famous interview that Tiger did, it must have been around 2000 when he was totally dominant in the game. I think it's still available on YouTube, where he talked about a lot of shots that he remembers preparing for the shot, but then he doesn't. It's almost like he can't verbalize really what's going on. But it's a description, I think, of what you're talking about.
Oh, it's 100%. The book, literally, it's called, first of all, it's called The Science of Silence. It's not available now. I'm still writing it and having fun writing it. It's going a little slower because I'm thinking things through very carefully. Is the whole book, and it opens up. This book is a book about explaining Tiger's quote. And the quote, that's all it's about. Tiger's quote was, as you mentioned, there have been key shots in major tournaments where I took the club out of the bag and I didn't remember anything until I saw the ball in the air. Now, that's just the opposite of what you would think or thought Tiger was experiencing, on the back nine at Augusta, all right, on Sunday. Look at Tiger's focus. Look at his concentration. Look at his determination. What is Tiger's inner experience? I don't even remember. So the book just wants to explain that from the deepest possible neurophysiological understanding. And that is thanks to Dr. Frederick Travis, who did explain all these dynamics. Now, if I could, or go ahead.
I was just going to say then, in that situation, just sort of playing devil's advocate, Steve, for anybody listening who's in that situation where they're feeling high levels of anxiety, they're very busy in the mind, they're coming down the stretch or whatever, what thoughts or direction would you give somebody in that situation?
First of all, my program is not a tip of the month. Okay, do this and this, do that. You have to build a foundation. And if you're asking, okay, what do I do when I'm profusely bleeding? Okay, so the first question would be, well, why are you profusely bleeding? Okay, what is this a byproduct of? This is a byproduct of being in swing prison. Essentially, you're in swing prison. You think that you have to live in checklist city before you initiate that motion, and if you don't do this one specific thing, which is the chunk of banana, then you don't have a good chance of hitting the shot. You have not built a foundation for success. You haven't. So there's no one tip. Okay, what can some person do? Well, if you want a tip, relax. Do less. Okay, softer, quieter. Softer, quieter. But that's a temporary Band-Aid, because unless you understand, I'll just give myself a little pitch here. Unless you've gone through my program or read my book or worked with me, you haven't built a foundation. So occasionally it's going to work. Softer, easier. Softer, quieter. That's two excellent words, softer, quieter. Understanding that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. That takes about 1,000 pounds off your shoulder, that the money is in the bank. All you have to do is learn how to access it. Well, you're not going to learn how to access it on the 15th fairway in a crisis situation. You have to go through a program and to build a foundation. So that's how I would just say do less. 2 words, do less. You're doing too much. Okay. You got too much drama. What are you doing? You know how to hit a golf ball. You know how to swing. Let's get rid of the drama.
One of the things that's given a bad press in golf is compensation. The idea that the body can feel, great players can feel the club is maybe slightly open or closed or whatever, and save the shot, and as though that should never happen. But I remember Nicholas talking about that famous 1-iron that he hit at Pebble Beach on the 17th, where I think he hit the flag, didn't he, in 72 or whatever it was, and He talked
He
about how
did.
he knew he was out of position. You know, everybody said it's one of the greatest shots of all time, and he actually said he couldn't be further from the truth. It felt a dreadful swing, but he knew he was out of position, and something allowed him to correct for that. Scheffler, I think, has talked about similar things, and you look at his golf swing, and some of that must be going on. You would assume. Is that again the role of the cerebellum from the sort of
Yeah.
wholeness that this
Yes.
amazing thing that we have has got the ability to do what's necessary to produce the shot?
Oh, totally. Okay. So the cerebellum does two things, and the cerebellum can only operate efficiently in an environment of wholeness. It cannot operate efficiently if you don't experience that. The cerebellum does two things. One, it smooths out emotion, and two, it's able to self-correct emotion. It self-corrects emotion. Now, the interesting thing is, in the first 2 or 3 feet of a swing, if the brain physiology has not experienced a threshold level of wholeness, you will not access the cerebellum. The first 2 or 3 feet of the swing is going to set up a series of sequences that are going to allow you to actually access the muscle memory, the motion memory in the basal ganglia. And the interesting thing, and Jack's quote is that story is going to be in the book, because he said, when I took the club back, I knew it wasn't going to be good. Because in the first 2 or 3 feet, he did not have a threshold level of wholeness.
Mhm.
So, and of course, this is happening in microseconds. So what happened is that because he's such a golf genius and such an elite, uh, um, I mean, one of the best that ever existed, if not the best, he was able, which 99.9% of the golfers would not be able to do. He did not have a threshold level of wholeness, and then he switched into it.
Mm.
Now, had he not switched into it somewhere on the way back, or in that shot would not be anywhere close to hitting the pin. Okay, it could be in the Pacific Ocean.
Mm.
So he was able to do that. And what makes career rounds is not how good the good shots are, it's how good the bad shots are. And when you access the cerebellum, which is always self-correct, it can self-correct because it remembers where the body has to be, where the club has to be, where the arm has to be, then it saves the shot. And the great ones, that's they had access
Yeah.
to getting that cerebellum working in the best possible manner.
Yeah. Well, Stephen, we've had another. It's been a while, but it was a fascinating conversation as ever. We always go into some interesting direction there.
Yes.
Let
Yes.
people know where they can find out. I know you said the book's under construction at the moment, but let people know
Yes.
where they can find Simplicity and
Yes.
the stuff that you've already got out there.
Yes. So Simplicity is available on Amazon. I suggest you can start there. It gives out the whole program. Well, not the whole program. I do save some special things when people see me in person. My website is stephenyellen.com. It's spelled Yellin and Steven. There are two ways you can learn the program. I have a series of videos that are available for sale on my website. And also you have the option of connecting with me while you're watching those videos. That would be a second level, but the real pièce de résistance, okay, if you really wanted to transform your game and have the best chance of reaching your potential in golf, this marvelous game of golf, come and see me in Vero Beach, Florida. You will never play golf the same again. So those are the ways that you can contact me.
Great. I think escaping the weather in Northern Europe to get to Florida wouldn't be a bad idea anyway.
I have someone coming in January, specifically coming to work with me, who wants to be on the Champions Tour equivalent in the UK. What is that called? Is there like a Champions Tour?
The Legends Tour.
Yes, he's a very good golfer.
Mhm.
Okay, feels he has a chance. Read the book, was quite fascinated, and said I never heard anything like this. It's already changed my game. So he's specifically coming out the first week of January to work with me.
Great. Stephen, thanks ever so much again. Appreciate your time.
Karl, it was a pleasure. Like myself, you're a lifelong student of the game, and I really appreciate and respect that.